Welcome, everybody. I am Daniel from Startup CPG, and I don't know if you know this about me, but I love data. Maybe you can tell from the hat that I'm wearing that says I love data that the Nielsen team was nice enough to give me. But in a past life, before just being full-time on Startup CPG, I was a data guy, one of the deepest data guys I think that you'll find. I used to be the head of analytics and insights at a company called Just Egg, and this is what I lived for, was just basically how to pull, manipulate, tell stories using data. And I really felt like I was one of the people who spent the most time on it in this emerging brands world. And it was because I had come from Mars Chocolate, where I sat there and watched a team of 6 people doing just data lobbying only for the Walmart account. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like it must really mean something. And then I went out to Silicon Valley in the food tech world, and they weren't having anybody look at it. I'm like, you got to tell your story. If you don't do it, the retailer's not going to look for your story. And just finding so many ways to strategically tell your story using data that is accessible through people like Nielsen IQ, going out and getting your own data, making data when you have to. So we're going to cover a lot of this. And I think some of you out there have differing levels of expertise on this. So you might be someone like Neil, who's been through this with a bunch of retailers and kind of refining your data slides. You might be at the very beginning and just looking at like, okay, what are a couple basic ones I need to have in my presentation? So thank you a lot to the Nielsen IQ team for not only just putting this presentation together that'll give you a lot of the basic building blocks, and then we're going to see a real live example with Neil, where he actually has the examples of his slides and how he's putting them into practice. But also, just a reminder, you can get some free data from Nielsen IQ 𝐕𝐲𝐬. So we'll drop the link here in the chat. I'm dropping it right now. You can get 3 free reports, which is awesome. They cover places like Whole Foods. If you wanted to just say like, hey, give me a quick look at velocities for my category at Whole Foods, that's like one of the 3 free reports that you could get. And then you can show that to the buyer and be like, these guys stink. I can see it in the data. And the buyer won't have looked that up by themselves. They'll be happy that you showed it to them and say like, look, we're doing better than them at that other store. We're going to do better than them there. So lots of different ways you can do it. So I'm going to be jumping in throughout the presentation just to give a little bit of like my experience of how you can do this, especially when you don't have a lot of resources and data. But for now, I will just kick it over to Kelsey to get us started here, who has obviously just worlds of experience doing this from the Nielsen IQ side and with emerging brands. Thank you, Kelsey.
Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. It's nice to meet you. I'm 𝐂𝐏𝐵𝐵𝐴. I lead our relationships with all of our ongoing clients in the emerging brand space. So we have over 700 clients that are emerging clients that work with NIQ on an ongoing basis. And over the course of a year, NIQ works with over 3,000 emerging brands. So I've spent a lot of time helping clients refine their pitch decks, and actually was part of the team that built 𝐕𝐲𝐬 as well. So intimately familiar with the different scales of these pitch decks, how much you have to get scrappy with your use of data. And I'm going to talk a lot about that as we get in. And I know Daniel will chime in on that as well. So really excited to be talking to you. I also spent 10 years with NIQ working on the retailer side, specifically on optimizing their assortment in addition to price and promotion. And I've actually sat in on these vendor conversations with clients of all sides from the retailer perspective, which I really think helps me to see it from both sides and what a retailer needs in those conversations, what they actually know about their categories, and how then on the other side, right, you can really help position yourselves well going into these conversations. So I'm going to start off by talking a little bit about presentation principles and what to really think about as you're getting into your pitch deck from a philosophy perspective. Then spend a few minutes talking about the retailers. I think it's really important that you put yourselves in the retailer's shoes and understand their mindset so you can have the best pitch deck possible, and then go through those 10-slide examples of what to include in your retailer pitch deck. Then I'm going to hand it over to Neil from 𝐕𝐻𝐵𝐴, who is actually NIQ's Pitch Slam winner in 2024, to actually show this. It's one thing for me to talk about it from a philosophy and a strategy perspective, but I think it's another thing for you to really see this come to life. And he has a wonderful example that we're going to walk through. All right, getting right into it. So presentation principles. What should your deck leave the retailer feeling or seeing, understanding? The first two, value and innovation, are much more about you and what you're conveying. Being direct and retailer focused are more about how you're going to convey that information. So for the first two, value, you need to be able to communicate in your deck the need of the customer that you're addressing. And this needs to be relatively widespread, a meaningful issue that you're addressing, and something that your product, you're showing how it's going to address that need, right? They want to understand from their consumer perspective that you are meeting that need. Second is innovation. How is your product unique and going to stand out from the other products that they have on shelf today, right? So these are two things that really is your gut checking your deck. Make sure that you're communicating these clearly. The next two, more so about how you're conveying, making sure that you're direct in your communication, because they are going to get a lot of these presentations. Often they stack these meetings back to back to back. So you want to make sure you're standing out and you're also being really clear. A rule that I learned early on is 1-1-1, right? Think of one line in your title, one point you're trying to convey, one chart or graphic to keep it clear. And then retailer focused. At the end of the day, they're a business as well, and they are going to bring in the brands that are helping them reach their financial objectives. So how are you going to help them achieve their goals? This is where data comes in. So I'm going to spend a lot of time talking about how you can actually use data to showcase that you're going to help the retailer reach their objectives from a financial, consumer, profit, which is often the three different avenues that retailer and category buyers are benchmarked to. All right, so let's think about the retailer perspective and how are you going to frame things up to actually meet their needs? First, it's really important to understand the financial landscape of retailers today. Unit sales are flat. This is the number one concern of retailers. How are they actually going to grow sales, knowing that unit sales are flat and the bulk of things are growing today are truly just due to price increases? That's not a very healthy, sustainable business. So retailers are going to be trying to find strategies that are going to help them build unit sales. The good news is emerging brands are very well positioned to do this. So focusing on that top left chart, the dark blue is large brands. The medium blue is medium-sized brands, and then orange is small brands. And not only from a dollar perspective, but also from a unit perspective, small brands are significantly outpacing large brands in driving unit growth. And a large reason they're doing this is bringing in increased distribution, new activities, new things for their customers. So your category buyers are going to be looking for those innovative brands that are going to come in and be disruptors, because that is who is actually driving growth in the market. Another thing you need to know going in is there is extensive SKU rationalization happening across the store. The number of UPCs selling since 2020 has declined by almost 9%, and that is consistent across all departments of the store. Buyers are very focused on how do they consolidate the number of UPCs and vendors that they are managing within their portfolio. So you coming in as a new brand, they're going to be scrutinizing, right? How are you going to replace something that I'm taking off shelf, knowing I have to consolidate overall? Last but not least, value is a key and important thing that they are thinking about. And value is not just price. It is the use case and what something is bringing to the consumer. So think about not just the price point, but what is the perceived experience, the influencers that are actually bringing in the knowledge about the brand and the attributes that your brand is addressing. Those are the value that you're going to be bringing, not just to your consumers, but then also for the retailer by having those consumers met at their store. All right, so let's recap these 3 important retailer concerns, right? They are focused on effective SKU rationalization, attracting and retaining shoppers while building their basket, right? That's the whole unit sales. They want to maintain this, and driving unit sales, right? So you want to make sure you're addressing the value of the consumers, attracting, retaining them, and then driving unit sales as well. So this translates directly to what you need to convey. How are you going to grow unit sales? How are you going to attract customers? And how are you showcasing your value to the consumer through the attributes that your products are addressing?
And I'll just add on to that. I hear it over and over. I just heard it on the Whole Foods webinar that we uploaded to our podcast yesterday. It's like your value, but also what is your value versus what they have on their shelf, right? Because they know what's on their shelf. Do you? It really helps when you're talking to them and when you're showing slides. If you can say like, look, I know what's on there. So we're not just pitching you as another version of the thing that you already have on there, but like, yeah, here's our value versus what you have on the set. Here's how we're different. Here's how we're going to move on shelf, and it'll be incremental because it's not exactly like what's on there.
Exactly. I think that's exactly right. So the 10 slides that you need, I outline them all here. I'm going to speak to them holistically and then go through them one by one. So outlined kind of the topic and then what you're trying to convey, right? Once you complete that slide, gut check yourself. Are you answering that question? So the first 2 are really about your product and who you are and conveying that simply. Then it goes to quantifying some of those measures, and we're going to walk through those, talking specifically about your uniqueness, but then at the end, making sure you're hitting their retailer's perspective really hard, right? Why do they need to do this? Because if they don't, their retailers that are their competitors are going to have these products, right? And your consumers at your store are going to want these products. So that's some of the back half things to address. So the first 2, I don't have specific slides for. I'm just going to speak to them here. But I think it's very important that you start by talking about that value. What is the problem that your consumers have and that you are the answer for and that you're addressing? And then specifically, what is the elevator pitch of your product? You want these 2 slides to be concise, clear, and really making sure you're hitting that hard. And I think Neil is going to share a great example of that upfront component. All right, let's get into some of the slides specifically. I have templates mocking up what these things look like. Each of you has your own brand flavor that you're going to put on top of these, right? But I'm going to speak to what you're trying to convey. And I have some yellow boxes on here, right, that are gut checking some of those components. So the first, right, after you've said who you are, right, and what the customer problem is that you're addressing, you next want to speak to the market size. The market size that you're addressing is essentially saying the problem, right, or the space of your product is going to be a certain size. You want to convey to the retailer that that is a meaningful part of their business that they want to invest in, and is something that's going to be something they want to invest in the future by adding your product as a SKU. So I'll give some examples in coffee just to counteract Neil's examples that he's going to provide. But investing in something like single serve K-cups is not necessarily where you'd want to talk about coffee today, but there are a lot of single serve coffee areas, right, that are great areas today that are expanding. So speaking to the size today and then the projected size that it's going to in the future. These are the types of things that you can use NIQ data for, but also if you don't have data that you've purchased today, Google it. Go get scrappy trying to find information on market size. There's tons of articles out there about just general consumer trends that you can use as well. The important part is to convey that this is a sizable market and that it is growing.
And a couple sources that I've used in the past, Statista. Often you can get like a last year report for free or something. Looking at other brands in your space, some articles and stuff that they've released, because they might be citing a data source that you can use as well. And also, if you ever hire a student intern, they have this lovely access to libraries that often have things like Mintel subscriptions. So I'm not saying that's what we should all do, but it is, they do have those student access codes.
All right, so building on from there, after you've talked about market size, now specifically quantifying some of those attributes or need states that your product is addressing and what the size of those are. I called out, these are going to vary based on the different types of products you are. I've seen a lot of different flavors of this. I called out some examples in that box in the middle there about either attributes or needs or population, right? These are going to customize based on your specific product and story. But things like addressing a certain population, right, that your product is really targeted at. What's the population growth, right? Or if there's a concern that your product is addressing, a health concern, a benefit, right? What's the growth of that benefit or behavior change over time, right? If there's a certain way we're changing how we're consuming, great example is zero alcoholic beverages, right? That's a behavior change that we can quantify. There's a lot of public information about that. Or things like change in form or package, ingredient, a category, something like that as well. Moving to sustainable packaging, for example, if your product is a sustainable package type, these are other things you can call out. So this is where you get scrappy with what data you can find. We have a lot of good examples from NIQ, but there's a lot you can find out there as well. On the right-hand side, there's also a lot of experts that talk about the consumer behavioral changes that a lot of your new products are innovating and addressing. And calling those out to just give credibility to the direction is also helpful, especially from top publications, news articles, things like that as well.
And some other ways to get some of this stuff, like for the need importance, for example, survey your customers. The free thing to do is if you have people's email addresses, asking them to fill out a survey. You could also offer them a coupon or a chance to win a free case to do it. And you can just ask them like, okay, tell me the top 10 reasons why you bought this and what are you buying if you don't buy this, or those kind of things. We did a webinar with SurveyMonkey once upon a time that goes into a lot of that also, and it will help you find what that data point is. And then also for attribute sales growth, quick plug for another webinar we're going to do with Nielsen IQ coming up, I think in about 2 months, where we are going to show one home run slide of the sales growth of all of the major attributes, like non-GMO, how much did that grow last year and all the other things. So keep your eyes open for that. It's going to be a banger.
That's a great example and a great plug. There's a lot of NIQ thought leadership that we put out as well. If you aren't on our thought leadership newsletters that go out on a regular basis, I'll have someone from NIQ drop the link in here as well, so you can sign up to for those as well. All right, so we addressed the industry trends holistically. Next, moving into the consumer and talking a little bit about the consumer you're targeting. The retailers are also very targeted on their consumer too. So it's important that you can convey your understanding of your targeted consumer. It might be one group, it might be two groups, right? You know, young moms who are doing this type of behavior, or, you know, people who are very health conscious as they're moving into the later phases of their lives, right? Understanding who that is, their interests, preferences, consumptions. Those are types of things that NIQ can provide, but also, like we were just hearing, those are things that you can get from your consumers directly by emailing them, surveying them, right? Just talking to them and understanding those things.
And on this one, so like, I know people can get, some of this would be like panel data, right? That people can
Yes.
get from you guys, which I think it just is also just part of the 𝐕𝐝₀ platform, right? So they could get
It
that
is.
through
Yep.
that same link. I'm just putting here in the chat. If you want to talk to the team, again, you can get 3 free reports. That's free. So I just put the link there if you want to sign up for a one-on-one with them. And they do nice things on the one-on-one calls. So I recommend having them. They're nice people. Mark, who's in the chat here today, he likes to help people out. So definitely recommend it. And yeah, like Kelsey's saying, you can create some of this stuff also, just like you probably wouldn't get the penetration number on your own survey, but you could get the buy rate and frequency just by asking a lot of well-positioned questions.
100%. And you're with some of these measures that I showed, for example, this is a direct screenshot from a 𝐕𝐝₀ specific report. You want to showcase with these measures that the shopper group that you're targeting is an attractive one to that retailer group. They are looking for people who have high loyalty, repeat buyers, and then obviously that buy rate number, right? So look at those right-hand measures, loyalty of brand shoppers, 2+ time buyers, those are repeat buyers, right? And then what is their growth over time? And they're bringing in incremental value to the category. So if there isn't enough sample, right, for your specific brand, since this is panel data we're talking about, there are other ways and strategies that we can advise you on as well to help you position this data and use it in a way that's effective. Okay, so customers, you're highlighting who your customer is and why they are attractive to that retailer, because they're loyal, they're engaged, they're purchasing frequently.
And the other thing in the surveys I love to add on to that data is like, well, how do they use the product? Because buyers always are curious about that. Like, if it's a drink, like when do they drink it? What are they drinking it instead of? Where's that volume coming from? Because if you're a buyer and you can show them like it's not coming from other drinks in this category, it's coming from like packaged stuff in a different category. They're like, whoa, good, like more sales for my set. So the more questions you can ask people and put in there in that data slide, the better.
Completely. Anything that shows your uniqueness or the source of volume is not coming from switching to another product already on shelf, those are amazing for retailers to see.
Incrementality, that's what we love.
Incrementality, yes.
This is my incrementality button. All right.
Perfect. So that gets into uniqueness, right? That's one of the things you want to showcase as well. We talked already about the importance of showcasing your product is unique versus who is already on shelf. I would encourage you, if you can get to an actual store of that retailer, go take a picture, look at who's already on shelf, and then how are you differentiated versus those brands that are already on shelf today. Anytime you show a retailer a picture of their own shelf and how they can do it better, it catches their attention because you took the time, you did your research, and you know what you're talking about. So here you want to convey your attributes of your product and how that is better than what they already have today or what could be coming in the future. You want to be unique because at the end of the day, as we were just talking about, they want to build that incrementality. And incrementality, yes, we can measure it using models and many sophisticated things, but you also can just showcase how that your product is unique, right? And what it's addressing from a customer attribute perspective, which drives extremely high loyalty as well. I also called out on this slide, I want to take this. If you have any patents or formulations that are unique to you as well, call that out. I've seen a lot of brands not do that, and you really should be shouting from the rooftops. If you have certifications, patents, say it, and say it frequently in these presentations. All right. The meat, getting into your sales so far. There are a million measures you can talk about. If your job is analyzing data like it's mine, I could talk to you for hours about all the different facts, but I want to simplify it into 4 facts that if you do have this type of data that are the best to start with. One is your product rank or some relative performance measure on how you're doing versus other people. Another is unit growth specifically. Dollar growth is good too, but unit growth, given the concern of retailers, is going to be paramount for showing your success. Velocity, that is sales per distribution point, and we can provide you definitions of any of these, but that equivalizes your performance to just the areas where you're selling today to showcase how effective your product is going to be selling on shelf. So, right, whether you have just a couple stores in distribution or hundreds of doors, velocity can help equivalize that. And that shows that your product can be productive against the other products, right, that are already selling in many more doors than you. Ideally, what you want to go into a retailer saying is, hey, look at my measures. I'm growing in units. I have strong velocity. I am ranked well where I am sold today. So you should be investing in me. And here's other brands that you're not that you're carrying today that are not performing as well as my product is in velocity. That becomes a very easy decision for the retailer to know they can take that existing product off shelf, put you in, and your velocity is going to compensate for them taking that product off shelf.
And just to add a couple of things on this, because like data, you get like your data set and it's like a Rubik's Cube. You like can switch it all different ways around and see like which way the light shines through it the best for your brand. That's data lobbying. Everybody does it. Those other brands ranked above you are all twisting it the way that makes you look the worst so they can have more shelf space. So you've got to do it also. There are a lot of ways that you can do this. When you get a data cut, I love getting as many dates as possible, like last 12 weeks, last 24 weeks, last 4 weeks. And I'm going to show the one where it looks the best that feels like a reasonable thing to do. You know, you can't ever lie about the data, obviously, but you should show it the way it makes you look the best. And okay, maybe like you won't have your sales at their retailer already because you're not on the shelf, but you can show strategically accounts that you're doing well, that they would care about. Or if you look best in the overall channel view, maybe you'll show that. And you can filter stuff also. You don't just have to show like the whole dump that has every brand in there. Like what would be reasonable? Well, I'm actually only showing brands that have over 10% ACV, like weighted distribution. And that's going to cut this list down. Or actually, I'm only showing brands that were on shelf last year because I'm showing growth. Lots of ways that you can filter the data to get your rank up, 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 which is where you want to be, up and to the right, right? Every data point, you're like manipulating things around to, it has to be true, but to show it in a way that they'll like nod along with it. So
I think
there's
that's
the
so
real deal.
important. That and if you can build that successful story by changing your scope of your universe you're looking at, that definitely helps. Another way I see brands being really successful at this is by using those attributes where they are fulfilling their customer needs to limit the universe as well of what you're talking about. And with data from NIQ, not only will you be able to see your SKUs that are selling in market, but you can see the SKUs of your competitors as well. It's all the products that are being sold in market at the specific retailer. So it gives you a lot of granularity on the data.
And like you'll know if you go too far. If you're like, well, on the third full moon of every month, if you look at the data just so like, okay, yeah, that's going to be too far. But you know, maybe not looking at 1 week of performance, but 4 weeks is pretty legit. And yeah, I mean, all like you need to take the data and just flip it every way until the story is the best. Like, am I best on unit growth, or am I best on velocity, or am I best on dollar sales? And that's going to be the way that you talk about it. And honestly, I've presented data to so many retailers. They've never pushed so hard on questions as long as it's like reasonable, it looks, you know, diligent and kind of well presented. Mainly they're going to nod along as long as it makes sense to them.
100%. I didn't so two things to be aware of. Retailers, especially buyers today, one, retailers are rotating buyers through their categories faster than they ever have before. So while maybe 10 years ago, retailers, it was the same buyer who'd been at that desk for years and years and years, that isn't happening for the most part today. So these category managers are not experts in their categories like they used to be. They are looking to really their category captains to bring them insights on what's happening in the category. The limitation there is the category captain is usually the largest brand in the category. And so they have a unique advantage of wanting to keep themselves, right, as that category captain and the top SKUs in the shelf. However, often the innovation is not coming from that biggest category. So you need, in that attribute slide that we mentioned on some of those sales trends, that is a great example of highlighting some of the things happening in the category that may not be the top thing that that big category leader wants to be talking about. So that's one way to get the retailer's attention. The second is to talk about their remaining market. Just like you don't like to hear that your competitors are outperforming you, the retailer does not want to hear that their competitors are outperforming them. In data speak, that is remaining market. So retailers, like let's use Target, for example, right? Target sees their sales and then they see their competitors in a remaining market aggregate. So highly, and you can get this in NIQ data. You can pull the sales if you're going in to pitch to Target for Target, but then you can pull their sales for their remaining market, especially if you are selling in their remaining market. This is what I called FOMO, right? The biggest way to get a retailer moving is to tell them that something exciting is happening in the market that they are missing out on. What products are you selling in their market that they don't have? And through everything else, you've already told them this is a great opportunity to include your products. It's going to drive their sales, meet their customer needs, all of these exciting things. So you will want to add that in. Go ahead.
Yeah, a couple of things to add on this because I obviously get very excited about this. Remaining market, just to confirm people, is like, okay, if I'm selling at, one chain in Chicago, what is the volume and stuff that's happening outside of their chain, rest of the market? So like, yeah, stuff they should be worried about. So and it also kind of depends on the sophistication of the retailer, like how deep you want to go on this stuff. If you're talking to Kroger, they want all this and more. That is a data company. They make very data-driven decisions. The buyers are extremely far along on that. And yeah, they're getting fed a lot by big category captains. You're talking to like a 6-chain indie chain. Like some of them do care about that. Some of them won't. They also may not care as much about the like overall national context slides because they worry a lot more about what's in their backyard and they have way more categories to look after also. So they'll be looking for just kind of the punchier slides that's like, we're awesome, we'll do really well on your shelf, great. And then there was also a question about what do you do when you don't have all of this data? You have to like create it. Okay, I'm not selling already in these chains. I'm early on. Like, what can I do before I even get my first account that actually has data that I could get? Make it, people. So like I've made slides that almost look like this just because I got into one account and I called them on the phone. They're like in another state. I'm like, hey, can you just tell me how you think we're selling? Like, okay, how many units do you think we sold this month? How many did the competition sell? How many did we sell last month? If you ask enough of those questions, you can make this data slide. And when I promise you, like when you make it on a slide like this, it will look like a totally legit data slide. And it is real data. You just happen to get it by calling instead of, because, like hard to get that one indie store you're in through someone like Nielsen IQ, at that level until you get to the point where it's the chains and you can get this kind of data. And then also last comment is, this is the other side of it, showing the SKU level. You can show brand level, or you can show SKU level, or you can show both. And at the SKU level, you can do it. You have way more options even to show stuff strategically. You can decide, oh, I'm just going to show the chocolate chip flavors and we're the highest of chocolate chip flavors, or we're, there's so many more things you can filter on at that, or just we're the 5th ranked top selling SKU from a brand, all these different ways that you can filter it. So
100%. This is if you have all the data, right? But just adding on to that with some examples of other things I've seen happen, the phone a friend, get the data from the retailer in the one store you're in, right? That type of thing. I've also seen brands use their Shopify data, right? Or whatever their DTC solution is, right? Any data is better than no data. So use what you have, what you can find, and then build off of it as you get bigger and expand.
And distributor data, of course, you can use. If that's
Distributor
all you
data.
got, it's not going to be competitive, but it's at least a start. And if you knew where you were at one account, you could just highlight that and then say, kind of transfer it to other accounts as well.
Yeah. All right, next is your sales momentum, right? So retailers, it's similar to the fear of missing out, right? They want to know that this is a train that they should be getting on because there's a lot happening. This is a little bit of your opportunity to tell your story of where you're investing and your sales growth. If you can forecast your sales growth, I would encourage you to do so. We could spend a whole session on how to forecast sales growth, but use your unit trends, your growth, your expansion opportunities to anticipate what your sales will be, but then also say what you are doing to ensure that that's going to happen. If you already know of expansion happening in the market, great. If you are expecting to launch any new varieties of your products, flavors, expansions, things like that, other marketing activity you might be doing, those are things to highlight on here as well, because it shows that you are investing in your product, you have a vision for your product, and this is something that's going to continue to grow over time. All right, then last but not least, a why believe slide. Going back to some of those measures we talked about, there's a lot of different things that you could pull in here. Some of the most sophisticated ones are measuring incrementality from someone like NIQ. That is something we can quantify, showcasing that your product is going to bring an incremental value. You can also use things like customer research, showcasing, right, some of the things that we were highlighting before. Who's going to purchase this product, right? The products they have today aren't meeting their needs, and we can meet those needs. Product testing is another thing that NIQ can provide, where we can actually say, how likely are customers willing to buy this product? But this is also where you can pull in customer feedback, right? Ratings that they've provided, responses to emails, other things that you can survey directly on your customers to add a little bit of color commentary on why this is something that's going to resonate with the retailer's shoppers, and really bring that vision back from the very beginning, right? We started with what is the customer problem and why are you the answer? Bringing it back to what now customers are saying. If you can measure that, great. If you can measure it with customer research, great. But at least showing how customers are saying this is meeting the needs and something the retailer should believe in. Okay, that wraps up your 10 slides. I'm going to turn it over a minute to Neil from Jazzberry, who is our NIQ Pitch Slam winner. For those of you who don't know, 30 seconds on NIQ's Pitch Slam. We're doing this annually. Submissions start in, I think, February for 2025. So we're already planning it for next year. And the top 5 finalists present on stage at our customer conference. You can see there Kevin O'Leary from Shark Tank and Greg Dubitsky, who is the founder of Hello Toothpaste, now Hello Coffee, and EOS, tons of other legacy brands. Were the judges there, right? So big heavy hitters in the CPG industry. What I want you to hear as Neil's going through his pitch is bringing us back to those 4 initial pillars of what to include in your deck. How he's communicating the value that it's meeting of the customer need, how he's showcasing innovation, it being unique and differentiated, how he's being very clear in his messaging, both visually and what he's saying. And then last but not least, that he is actually showcasing through the data how they are going to grow shoppers and units. So with that,
and just as we're passing over to Neil, I just wanted to highlight one thing. So I mentioned, like, Nielsen has so much data. They have the exclusive on Whole Foods data. I think they just added the fresh market too, which I had never heard of anyone having before. That's cool stuff. And so you can get the 3 free reports. Like I mentioned, through the links that I've been dropping in the chat. We also negotiated a very special deal just with them, which is supposed to be really right size for all of you. I have paid a lot for data in my lifetime. If we can make it like bite size and just exactly what you need, that's the best way to do it. So in the chat, you'll see I dropped a link. The package that we have with 𝐕𝐲𝐬 from Nielsen is you get 20 reports. This is a 5K package. It's $49.50. So you get 20 reports, the full view of like 6 markets. That could be like specific retailers like Whole Foods, geographies, and it goes down to the UPC level, so you can get all that good stuff. So definitely check it out. And even if you don't end up buying it, get the 3 free reports. And so the link I just dropped there, and I'll drop it again a little bit later. And Mark Santos mentioned they can also customize packages for you. So you can just pay for the stuff you need instead of, I mean, I don't know. I've paid $150K a year for data before, so 5K sounds pretty good. All right, sorry, Neil, over to you.
All right, well, thank you for having me here, and really love this session. I've sat in a lot of sessions, and this is one of the best sessions that I've sat on. So thank you, you know, Kelsey. I think one point I was laughing at was that they change the buyer quite often, right, in the retailer now, and the buyers sometimes have very little idea about the category. So you having the data and actually almost educating them in some ways, it go a long way. So that's really something that I found personally, unless you deal with a Costco buyer, in which case they know the category, because they don't have so many category. But for every other retailer, I think this is just is a huge importance. And I'm happy to say that I did the Pitch Slam in May at the C360. And now I have 2 category analysts that present data to me twice a week. So I'm looking over hundreds of PowerPoint every week on data now for new product development, for expansion, for all kinds of strategic decision. So really, NIQ has been an amazing partner for us. And thank you for making it accessible for the small brands, you know, like 5K a year. That's a great deal. And, you know, so yeah, really appreciate your help for all, you know, as like we are emerging brands. So yeah, I want to share with you today my pitch. It was back in May. So actually from May to now, a lot has changed. But this is going to be me going back 5 months in time and you know, pitching what I pitch on stage, so that you have an idea. For those of you who are thinking about competing for the Pitch Slam next year, please do. It's not about winning. I think it's going to help you hone your story. You know, telling your story in a concise, you know, direct manner, in a way that resonates with the buyer. And for those of you who are looking for investors and other stakeholders, it's really the same thing. So, you know, it's probably 95% the same. Do I have access to the deck?
You should be able to just share your screen in the middle, the green button, or I can share it, Neil.
Oh, I can share my screen.
Okay.
That's easy. Okay, can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So I don't feel like I'm pitching here, but I'm just gonna tell you a little bit about our story and
I'm right into it, just like we would be a retailer.
Okay. All right. So imagine if you had a crop that could transform the health of consumers worldwide, and at the same time take millions of farmers out of poverty. Imagine if you had a staple food that was not only delicious, but nutritious. We believe the big change starts with a tiny grain of rice. Jasmine rice is a new variety of rice with over 40 times higher antioxidant than brown rice, 7 times more than kale, and 4 times more than quinoa. It is simply the world's first superfood rice. Apart from their amazing antioxidant content, it is also much higher in protein, fiber, low in glycemic index, and filled with natural source of vitamin and minerals. More importantly, it's been ranked #1 in terms of taste, despite being 100% whole grain. It is soft, nutty, and aromatic. In fact, we also partner with other brands, as you can see here. It's a vegan sushi brand called Conscious Foods. They use the 𝐿𝐴 superfood rice in their sushi. They're now available in over 8,000 stores nationwide. But really, we're not just a rice company. 𝐿𝐴 as a brand is about transformation. Particularly, it's about transforming consumers' health through delicious and healthy organic products for everyday life. It's about transforming family lives out of poverty, and it's about transforming the planet through regenerative agriculture. And we do all of this one grain at a time. In fact, the two hands that you see on this slide are the two hands you see on all our packaging. It's the hand of the consumer and the hand of the farmer. And they're joined by this grain of rice, which is a symbol of transformation. So we launched nationwide at Whole Foods in April last year. Since then, we've been approved in over 2,000 stores nationwide, and now about 3,000. Our velocity has more than double or triple since we started, and we're outperforming the category benchmark. Our unit sales in March alone has doubled our February unit sales, and this is the trajectory that we've been going on. So we're really outperforming our category and bringing new consumers into the category. And if you go online to look at all the reviews on Amazon, Thrive Market, we have almost all 5-star ratings. Consumers love it as a new option that they have now, a superfood staple, which is an oxymoron. We've been running demos across the country to tell our story. We have chefs and demo teams who go out there and making sure that people get to taste this delicious, nutritious superfood rice. And we've been covered from the Boston Globe, New Hope Network, all kind of publication. We also won the Sophie Award for Best New Product at the Summit Fancy Food Show last year. And this year we won the Gold Award for the Best Product in the category. We also won the National Pitch Slam title at Expo East last year. Most importantly, though, we won the award. It's called the Pragmatic Visionary Award, the Greg Seton poll, which was the award given at the Expo West this year for the most impactful brand. And impact is why 𝐿𝐴 exists. We work with over 2,500 farmers' family, helping them increase their income from just 40 cents a day to almost $6 a day, an increase of 14 times. We've helped more than 12,000 farmers out of poverty. We are certified B Corp, and we grow rice with 25% less water, 50% less seeds, and more than 17,000 metric tons of greenhouse gas reduction every year. But really what this means when we talk about impact, these are people just like us. This is Mama, who's one of the farmers that we've been working with for 3 years. Just 3 years ago, she had $10,000 of debt. This is someone who's earning 40 cents a day, used chemical in her farm, and has 6 acres of land. Within 3 years, she's paid off all her debt. Her land is now certified organic. And most importantly, her 3 children that were working at a minimum wage factory near Bangkok are now back on the farm working with her, because for the first time in their life, they have hope for a brighter future. So we make everyday meals do more for you, the farmer, and the planet by transforming this category. And we don't just stop there. As I mentioned, 𝐿𝐴 is a brand about transformation, and we're going to transform the pretzel category by bringing the world's first superfood pretzel, which is made from 5 different superfoods, including the 𝐿𝐴 superfood rice, chia, quinoa, chickpeas, and flaxseed. And as you can see, it's going to look beautiful on shelf with the purple, which is our signature color. As you can see, all the brands have been around for forever. There has been no real innovation in this category. And thanks to the NIQ basis, we did a test for the new product that found that we had a great, outstanding proposition for the primary grocery shopper, and in particular, our target consumer segment, which is the age 33 to 55 mother kids, find this a great product. And in fact, 74% of them would eat this as an everyday snack.
And just to give people context on what NIQ basis is, so it's basically, you can run a concept test, right? Where they do this very frequently, and you can show consumers an image of a product and here are its attributes, and they can tell you things like whether or not they would buy it, why they would buy it. And it's in there in a database against a bunch of other concept tests that have been tested through NIQ basis, which has been around for a long time. Did I miss anything, Kelsey?
You got it. There's a lot of different avenues we can do, everything from pricing testing to forecasting sales, measuring consumers, helping you refine ideas even in concept testing. But the whole genesis of it is we can help you have a more successful product launch and really measure how it's going to be successful pre-launch. The price points on this vary significantly. We have a lot of cost-effective solutions in this area as well, and really helps to make sure you fine tune your concept and make it more effective once you do get into launch.
Yep, so I highly recommend it. The best is we're still working with them now with sampling and so forth. You can also do testing with consumers, right? To send them sample of your product, and you get more in-depth analysis in that way. So that's it. That is my short story, and happy to answer any questions.
And
yeah.
just so for me, I just was trying to put myself in the shoes of a buyer looking at that information. So like of all the principles that Kelsey went over before, I think most of them are in there in different ways. It doesn't have to be exactly the format, obviously, that Kelsey showed. You spoke to the differentiation of the product and, I think incrementality by showing like there's nothing like this on the shelf. And that part was just really clear. So you don't have to show it through a different data way because like, yeah, this didn't exist before. So we're the first, seems like it's going to resonate with people. And in terms of the like velocity slides and stuff, for me, it felt like good, compelling data without being too much data. So if I'm the buyer and I hear your story, it's a great pitch deck. I can see why you won the Pitch Slam. That was, I know, very competitive this year because it's a good, tight story that shows off the authenticity of your brand. And I think, the beautiful mission that you guys have and has an appropriate amount of data where they're probably going to nod along to it. Like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. That looks like it's good on shelf. Obviously, you've been very successful getting on like nationally with Whole Foods and Sprouts. Like these are the dream retailers for most people listening. So Neil, just one question for you on the data side is when you present this to retailers, what's the experience you're getting from them? Like, are they probing the data a bunch, or are they mainly just kind of nodding along when it makes sense? Like, how do you feel in the moment presenting those kinds of slides? And what questions do they have?
Yeah, honestly, like when you're on top of the data, on the numbers, they're really impressed because nowadays, obviously, I have a lot more data now in 3,000 stores, and so we know the competitor velocity, we know our velocity, we know our brand ranking, we know our growth, we know the market share. So I have like I do this 3-month market share sales in the last 3 months, and it shows that I'm getting 20% on a brand has been around for 30 years. So that's really like compelling, right? So when you start to show those kind of numbers, like honestly, the buyer cannot say no. Like you get to a point of data where they can't say no to this brand. So you really start to build, but as an emerging brand, of course, you have to start somewhere to your point. So you want to build your story. And I think that having, definitely unit movement and velocity and bringing growth to that category is a key considering factor for the buyer because they want to bring growth, right, to their category. And in fact, if you look at the data, a lot of the overall FMCG has been declining. So they're really looking for that boost from emerging brands. And I think the data is really key to like showing them that you are going to be let's say make sound business decision for your brand. So I think that's also where that really I think has been huge for our brand. And now, like I said, like we have data analysis session twice a week, so we really go much deeper now than we did obviously when we before we won the Pitch Slam.
All right.
I really love the example. Sorry, I really love that example of the 20% kind of source of volume. For me, the biggest mistake I see with emerging brands is they try and analyze all of the data and showcase all of the data. And that really isn't necessary. What you need to find is that compelling story. What are the couple facts, right, that really gives the retailer that reason to believe? And if you can speak to those with confidence, then you're going to nail your conversation. I think, Neil, you're exactly right. The retailers aren't trying to gotcha in these conversations. They just want to know that this is something that's going to pay off. And data is the way that they're going to build confidence in that.
And just one last thing, we just got approved in Costco. And I'm telling
Ooh,
you, the
congratulations.
data was huge in Costco. So I met the Costco buyer, and these people know the category, okay? They're not like the other buyer in other retailer. So the Costco buyer, I show them all the data, right? Everything. And yeah, we're launching in Costco in November, December, January in multiple regions. That's going to more than double our business this year, just Costco alone. So, you know, thanks to NIQ data, that was a huge part of the Costco pitch. So that's something that definitely for certain retailer like Costco, data everything. Like they really looked at that. I mean, maybe other retailer not as much, but Costco is obviously a great customer.
That's awesome. Congratulations. One question that came in through the Q&A is like about how do you actually create these data slides? Okay, so Kelsey sent us some templates. Those are cool if you want them, but your slides obviously are very much in your brand voice. So my experience being at a bigger company was we had designers, and like I would kind of give them the design for it, and then they would actually create the specific visuals for me that looked good. I really like what Kelsey said before about one message on the slide, and your slides are like that. Like you don't want to like vomit data all over a slide. Like just have one message per slide shown through the data. Neil, is it like in-house designers doing the actual slide work for you? Is it you? Is it like, you know, who's actually building the slide when you have the data?
Definitely not me. I'm definitely not taking any credit for the designer slide. Yeah, you know, we have in-house, not even designer, but people who I would say nowadays Canva is really good. So if you use Canva, it's really nice design, and obviously my design was done on the MacBook, which is the you know, different. But you can do it on PowerPoint. I think visually what is important is more about the brand look. So the color and the feel of the brand, like you want to make it look like it's your brand. So if you, even if it's just color or logo or something, and then just have, you know, like one message and have it, make it clean. I'm big on like clean slide. So what is the point you're trying to make, right? And if you're saying it's about velocity and it's about you outperforming the category velocity, like make it clear. So I think that's more important than making it look beautiful, because you might not have a designer, but I think it's more important to make it clean. And then I think in your brand, it made it clean and clear. And I think that's more, you know, like the retailer cares more about that.
Yeah. And yeah, if you're like good at PowerPoint or Canva, you can probably do it. I'm going to put one option for people in the chat here. Our partner Wagon, they're based in Columbia, so they're very cheap. I use them for I use them for like everything, but I use them for my sales slides at my last company, and they'll make it good. And you need, but any designer, like, you know what you actually want to show the retailer. So you need to give them feedback of like, yeah, no, make this pop though. And then put our product image there and like, oh yeah, now it's humming. So you got to do that with whoever you work with, but they're a pretty good option because their hourly rates are like 30, 40 bucks an hour because they're based in Columbia. So I'm putting that in the chat. You can email them at startupcpg@wagondesignstudio.com. We love them. So just looking through the questions that came in, people have asked a lot if the slides are all going out. So yes, we're going to share the Nielsen IQ slides that Kelsey put together, where the recording is going to be up on YouTube within a week. Neil, I think probably you're okay if we include your template slides also when we send it out, since they look so good.
Sure.
All right.
And you're sharing the slide, right? That's fine.
Yeah, great. We'll share all these slides so you'll all get access to all of these. I think we've gotten most of the other questions answered. Sorry if you had a very specific one that we might have missed out in the chat, but I think we'll do a lot more of these. So yeah, just one more plug for, you will see us announce a session with Nielsen IQ around November. This is like Daniel's dream session, because I have worked with the Nielsen team to create this custom presentation, which is all of the stuff that I would want to know about the US CPG market. So it's stuff like the growth of all the attributes, like how much is non-GMO growing versus sustainability claims. So it has that. It has so much data on the retailers, like, okay, rank all the retailers for me in terms of dollars per store and penetration. Like, you guys, I promise you've never seen this data before. What are the categories that grew the most in penetration last year? Sneak peek, actually, it's fragrances, like self-care revolution. It's pretty cool. So this is all custom Nielsen stuff and then coupled with my operator experience. So I'm giving you like a map of all the retailers I think are the best out there and how I would recommend going to market for new brands. So that'll be like a US CPG overview. You'll see the announcement. This is like insider tip. It's going to be a total banger. Everybody should sign up for this one. But I just really want to thank first Neil for joining us, because that really brought everything to life. And then obviously the Nielsen IQ team, who these have been some of the best attended webinars that we've ever done. These ones where we're like really getting very pragmatic here with the data. These are essential skills that only the big boys, like huge CPG companies, really used to be good at, but now all of you can be as good as Neil with a lot of these templates. And again, just want to remind everyone, you can get some free data reports actually through the 𝐕𝐲𝐬 team. And then we have that custom package where you can get tons of stuff for like 5K instead of 100K. So I'm putting all that there. Really recommend a chat with the Nielsen team. Kelsey, any words to end on?
Thank you all for your time. Feel free to scan the QR code to learn more about that lower price point data package, and good luck everyone on your next pitches.
All right. Thank you so much, everyone. Really appreciate all the questions.
Thank you. Good luck.